Hey guys, Andrew McFarland here. Hope you are feeling amazing. I'm in Bali at this new vegan cafe. Amazing place. It's called Zest. It's doing some work. I wanted to talk to you guys about cold pressed juice bar production. This is a conversation that comes up a lot for good reason. How do you do it? Well, I'm going to explain to you traditionally how it was done, and I'm also going to give you a great link, something that personally I created with a business partner to make this whole process of producing your cold pressed juices a lot easier. So first let's talk about how this is done traditionally. So depending on your recipes, you are going to need to know what your yields are based on your given equipment. So if you have 1 pound of apples, how much does that yield for you? Okay, that's going to give you X amount of ounces. Now there are two ways traditionally to run your cold pressed juice bar production. I'm going to explain both, and I'm also going to explain why you might do one or the other. Okay, so the first way that you can consider doing this is creating your recipes in batches. So let's say hypothetically you have an apple, lemon, and ginger juice. Okay, you know that this recipe has X amount of ounces of apple, X amounts of ounces of lemon, and X amount of ginger. Now you, for the following day or for the morning of, maybe you get in really early, you decide, okay, well we want to produce 10 of these juices. Okay, so just by knowing how many pounds of each ingredient creates how many ounces, you also know based on how many ounces you need, how many pounds you'll need. So each piece of equipment that you're using is going to be different. So it's important that when you're doing these yields, you do it specifically on the equipment that you are utilizing. So that's first as a foundation in order for you actually to do this process correctly. Okay, from there, you can either go ahead and batch all of your items and ingredients together, you weigh it all out, you do it in one process, you go ahead and you press everything and then you bottle everything up. So that's one process of doing it. Now, the second process would be to press your ingredients individually. This would mean that you are doing your projections for the entire day, and based on the projections for your day, you are looking at each individual ingredient and saying, okay, well I've got one juice that has X amount of apples, we need to produce 10 of these. We've got another juice that has X amount of ounces of apples and we're going to produce 20 of those, and so on and so forth until you actually get to the point where you realize, okay, this is the amount of total apple juice yield that we need for the day. And then you go ahead and you would just press that. All right, you weigh out the pounds, you go ahead, you press that. Now, the same would go for every single ingredient on your menu. What's the benefit of doing it the first way versus the second way? Well, in the first scenario, depending on how many recipes you have versus how many ingredients you have, it's going to require a certain number of processes. So let's say hypothetically you've got 10 recipes, but you've got 20 ingredients. Well, that means if you're juicing everything individually, you have to do 20 different processes, because you have to juice the ginger and then take the press bag out or clean the juicer out and then go ahead and juice the next item, apples, then you got to go ahead and juice cucumbers. So that means that you're going to have to go through this process 20 different times in a lot of ways, versus if you are only having 10 drinks, you still have to weigh out 20 different items, but you are not going to be juicing 20 different items because you can juice these items in larger batches. So generally that's the process that you're probably going to want to end up going through, but in the beginning, sometimes it is helpful just for the sake of being very, very exact with your measurements and also your recipes in terms of portioning them out, and also having more flexibility in your ability to not overcommit certain ingredients. Because let's say hypothetically like this, you project that you want to make 10 of this drink, so you juice each ingredient separately for this 10 apple, lemon, and ginger juices for the sake of conversation. but you only go ahead and you bottle up 5 to see how they go and how they sell. But you find out, wow, this drink actually isn't selling as much as I thought. So now I have extra apple, lemon, and ginger in the refrigerator. Now, this apple, lemon, and ginger might be utilized. The apple could be utilized for your acai bowls, and maybe those are going really, really well. The lemon could be utilized for your wellness shots just as well as the ginger can be utilized for your wellness shots. And so now you're not having to overcommit certain ingredients to specific drinks before you know that there's a demand for them. Thank you. So sometimes early on, people like to take this individualized approach. It will very likely require more labor, a little bit more labor, but it might save you on your food costs. And so sometimes there's that crossover where you have to decide, where is the expense actually worth taking in labor or in the possibility of loss. The thing that I always tell people is if you ever overproduce and you have spoilage, you're losing twice, because you lose that money that you spent in labor, but you also lose the money in the product cost. So usually it's generally good to underestimate a little bit than to overestimate. So with all that being said, as you can probably imagine, in this process there can be quite a lot of math that needs to get done, and it can be quite time consuming. And then you have to translate all of this information to your production staff so that they can go ahead and create that list for the day. So what's the alternative? What's the solution? What do we create? So my business partner and I actually created some software because we noticed that this was a problem and this is a challenge that a lot of juice bar managers and business owners were having. So we developed something called UPressed. Now what does UPressed do? UPressed takes this whole process of you guys having to calculate all of the numbers of pounds of apples that you need for the day in order for your production. It creates a clean production sheet for you, and it can do this all in under a minute. All you have to do is input how many drinks you want to produce per recipe. So if you want to learn more about this software, just go to upress.com. There's also going to be a link below this video, and you can inquire there and learn more about it. We actually have on the website a working mock-up, so you can just kind of see how it works. But this software will produce really, really clear production sheets for you, and it will reduce all the time of you having to do this math manually with a calculator as well. So I hope this has been helpful. I hope you guys gain a little bit of insight into the process of cold pressed juice bar production. If you have any other questions or comments, you can put it below. If you like the video, press the like button, and if you're not subscribed to the channel, I invite you to subscribe. This is Andrew McFarland, wishing you guys much success, and I'll see you soon.